Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my college football top 25 here for week 12. Before I continue, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate you do that. Greatly appreciate you do that. Only 2 more weeks left of regular season games. Technically, maybe 3 weeks if there's a makeup game or the Army Navy game and championship week, of course. But we're coming down the pike here for the final stretch here. College football this past Saturday. Some very good games. A few surprises, a few things went my way. So let's get into it. Top 25 time. We'll kick off with number 25, Florida State, newly ranked team. Listen, I told you I was high on Florida State coming into the season. They've been in the top 25 before. Throughout the season, they've been in and out of it around that 25 spot. To me, they're kind of a fringe top 25 team. Um, I think that Florida State, um, they're 7-3. Let's see what they do. They get Louisiana next week. Should win that game, and then they get Florida. Win that game 9-3, going to a bowl game, possibly getting win up to 10. That's a big accomplishment for Mike Norvell. So I think Florida State is a top 25 team. Number 25. Number 24 is NC State. I dropped them in 8 spots after the embarrassing loss to Boston College. Let's give Boston College credit. They have nothing to play for. They already had 7 losses coming into the season. Not coming into the season, coming into this game. And they went ahead and beat NC State. So let's give them some credit. They're 3-7 now. Boston College. NC State, though, the only reason they're ahead of Florida State is because I am going to respect the head-to-head. Both of these teams are 7-3. But as I said, NC State, they're running out a backup quarterback. They're not as good as they were coming into the season or early on in the season. So, but I kept them in the top 25 because I'm going to respect the head-to-head with Florida State. So number 24, NC State, and their resume is still a decent resume, and they get North Carolina still, so they're going to have a shot to stay in the top 25. Number 23, Troy. Outside, if you watch Troy's been great this year. The defense is great. They're 8-2 there in the Sun Belt. The 2 losses, 18-point loss, and a game that, to be honest, they were kind of really in the whole time against Ole Miss, who's in the top 25, and then the Hail Mary to end the game against Appalachian State. Outside of that, Troy is getting the job done. Number 23, Troy. Um, they are kind of a surprise. I know I forget their head coach's name, but people were saying keep an eye on this head coach to possibly get a Power 5 job down the road, and I can see why. So, number 23, Troy, I really like what I'm seeing for Troy. Let's put some respect on Troy's name. Number 22, Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina beat Southern Miss. 26-23 without the starting quarterback. They only have 1 loss on the season. I'm going to assume that was a fluke loss where nothing really went right against Old Dominion. But Coastal Carolina, they look like the best team in the Sun Belt, and the Sun Belt is deep this year. Troy's also in the Sun Belt, but Coastal Carolina only 1 loss. We'll see what happens down the stretch here, but Coastal Carolina 9-1. I don't know who they get these final 2 weeks, but I believe they do get James Madison. They do. James Madison only has 3 losses, I believe, so they do get that game. But Coastal Carolina number 22, number 21 Notre Dame. This game went a little bit differently than what I thought. I mean, well, I shouldn't say differently than what I thought. I thought Navy was going to cover the spread. I don't think we picked this game, but if we did, I would have definitely took Navy in the plus 17.5. A little more high scoring than what I thought. I thought this game would be like 23-20 Notre Dame, but it was 35-32. And as a matter of fact, I think we did pick this game. I forget, but Notre Dame, you got the win. You move up 4 spots to number 21. And you got some help with your resume with Clemson winning. Notre Dame needs Clemson to go 11-1 to really help that resume. All right, top 20 here. Number 20, UCF. You beat Tulane on the road. I know the score was 38-31. Trust me, that game was not really that close. To 38-31, that was more of a 2-touchdown game. Give UCF credit. They look like the favorites possibly to get into a New Year's Six bowl bid. I would argue for Troy and Coastal Carolina as well, but and another team as well that could maybe be in the mix. And Tulane is still in the mix as well. And there's another team as well I'm going to bring up at the end here. But UCF, number 20, We'll see what they do. They still have South Florida. I forget who else they get, but it looks like they're going to be going into the American Championship game. And they beat Cincinnati early on in the season. So we'll see what happens with UCF. Number 20, UCF. Number 19, Oklahoma State. Listen, I get that Iowa State's not having a good year, but there is no bad team in the Big 12 this year. All the teams at worst, in my opinion, in the Big 12 are average. And it was a good win for Oklahoma State there to, I believe the game was on the road for them, to go on the road, get out of Ames with a victory. I moved them up 5 spots. It's a good win for Oklahoma State, a much needed win in my opinion. And we'll see what happens here down the stretch. They still get Oklahoma. That's a winnable game. I forget who else they get in the Big 12. But number 19, Oklahoma State. Number 18, Oregon State. Very impressive win against Cal, 38-10. Oregon State, all three of the losses are against teams that are better than them, in my opinion. So I think Oregon State is a top 25 team. I know picking them 18 might be a little bit too high, but they're 7-3, and they are beating everybody that they're supposed to beat convincingly. And even the games that they're underdogs in, they're definitely sitting there and competing with these teams, giving these teams games. So number 18, Oregon State. Number 17, Kansas State. Very impressive win there for Kansas State on the road against Baylor. 31-3, I think was the final score. I did not see this coming. This was one of the ones I did not see coming. I thought Baylor was going to win this game actually kind of convincingly. But give Chris Klieman credit. I said Kansas State was in the beginning of the season was the dark horse for me in the Big 12, and they are proving it. I moved them up 6 spots to number 17. In my opinion, this was a huge win for Kansas State. Number 16, Ole Miss. I moved them down 6 spots. Ole Miss, and trust me, it's not a bad loss. It's not even really the fact that you lost to Alabama is why I moved you down 6 spots, because if it was your resume. One of the resume builders for Ole Miss was that Kentucky win. Kentucky went ahead and they lost to Vanderbilt in an embarrassing fashion at home. That really hurt Ole Miss's resume. So in my opinion, I look at Ole Miss. I moved you guys down 6 spots. I think the resume took a big hit as well. Number 16, Ole Miss. Number 15, not a top 15 time. Utah. I know Utah beat Stanford 42-7. I get it. Once again, though, Florida lost to Kentucky. Florida's resume took a hit, in my opinion. And also, you look at Utah, you look at the head-to-heads. It's just, I mean, the teams in the Pac-12 deserve to be ahead of Utah because of the head-to-heads, in my opinion, for the most part. So, number 15, Utah. I still think they're a top 15 team, but I did move them down 3 spots, despite winning, only because I think that your resume took a hit and how the head-to-heads worked out. Number 14, Washington. I moved Washington up 3 spots. Very impressive game. Great game, by the way. The Oregon-Washington game was a great game. Washington ended up winning the game on a late field goal. Look at what another one I kind of didn't see coming. I thought Oregon would take care of business. But Washington, I moved you guys up 3 spots. I know you guys probably think you should be ahead of Oregon in the rankings. I think on neutral field, I think Oregon beats you guys. I actually think Oregon would beat Washington more than 50% of the time if the game was in Seattle and Washington. So give Washington credit, they got the win. But I still think Oregon's the better team. But overall, great win for Washington. I moved you guys up to number 14. Number 13, UCLA. UCLA, I moved them down 5 spots to number 13. What a disappointing loss to Arizona on the road there. That was a really disappointing loss. I only moved you down 5 spots because of the head-to-heads. Because you did beat Washington, Utah, UCLA did. But in my opinion, that you look at UCLA, that was just a disappointing loss overall. There for UCLA, they were obviously looking ahead to USC this upcoming week here in Week 12. So just a very disappointing loss. You look at UCLA, the 2 losses. And I'm going to explain why. And I have UCLA ahead of Washington because because of the head-to-head, but also because I actually think if you look at UCLA's resume, um, they both played MAC opponents. UCLA's MAC opponent is better than Washington's. If you look at the records, even though I think the two MAC opponents they played, it was Kent State and Bowling Green. Kent State blew out Bowling Green, and I know that Washington beat Kent State, but Bowling Green has a better record, so that's why I went with UCLA, and also the head-to-head as well. But UCLA moved down 5 spots. Very disappointing loss to number 13. Number 12, North Carolina. All they do is win. Outside of that loss to Notre Dame, which is a top 25 loss in my opinion. If you look at the poll, so the only team, even though Notre Dame wasn't top 25 at the time, but if you look at Notre Dame, they're in the top 25 right now. North Carolina, all they do is win. Went on the road, beat Wake Forest when they were underdog. I said that Wake Forest would bounce back, win the game 51-48. North Carolina won by 2. I almost went with the upset in that one. But North Carolina, great win on the road. They look like they were probably destined to get to the ACC championship game at 11-1. We'll see what happens. If they're 12-1, they're probably going to miss the playoffs at 12-1, but this is a great year for North Carolina. Probably the most quiet 9-1 team ever. So number 12, North Carolina. I moved you guys up 3 spots. Number 11, Clemson. I moved Clemson up 2 spots. That was a good win against Louisville. Louisville's a team that's probably a top 30-ish team. That was a good win, a pretty convincing win. I know offensively, it was still mediocre, but it was a convincing win. I moved Clemson up 2 spots. We'll see what happens down the stretch. They still get South Carolina. Clemson does. I believe they get a nobody next week, so we'll see what happens there with Clemson. Now top 10 time. Number 10, Penn State. Penn State shut out my Terps 30-0. Very impressive win for Penn State. Penn State I think got worse as a top 12 team. They had a bad performance against Michigan, and they in the Ohio State game went as I thought it would. They would lose by around 2 touchdowns, and they did. If I'm not mistaken, I think I had 34-20 Ohio State. It was a little more high scoring than that, but they lost 44-31. But you look at Penn State, yeah, I mean down the stretch here. I believe they still get Michigan State on the schedule. I want to say they get Rutgers as their other game, so they should finish the season 10-2. See who they get in the bowl game, but at worst they're a top 12 team. Penn State, I moved them up 4 spots to number 10. Number 9, Oregon. I moved Oregon down 3 spots. I still think they're a top 10 team, but that was a disappointing loss for Oregon. Oregon could have very well be in the college football playoffs, but now they're out of the college football playoffs. In my opinion, they're out of the race with their second loss of the season. You look at Oregon's schedule down the stretch. They'll get Oregon State, so that can maybe help a little bit. But I still think you guys are going to be out of the college football playoffs. That was devastating for Oregon, in my opinion. It was a great game, back and forth game, but at the end of the day, Washington got a late field goal. You guys couldn't convert, get a drive going there in the final 40 seconds. So number 9, Oregon, maybe you get the guys down 3 spots. I still think you're the second best team in the Pac-12. Number 8, Alabama. Impressive win for Alabama on the road against Ole Miss. I know you're going to sit there and be like, oh, it was a 6-point win. I said Ole Miss will cover the 11.5-point spread, and they did. But Alabama moved them up 3 spots. I still think they're out of the college football playoff race when it's all said and done. LSU clinched the SEC West with Alabama being Ole Miss. So LSU, it's going to probably be LSU and Georgia in the SEC championship game. But if you look at Alabama, they still get Auburn. I think they get Austin Peay this next week. So they'll probably finish the season 10-2. But at the end of the day, Alabama, I just think, in my opinion, I just don't think the resume is good enough for a 2-loss team to get in there. So number 8, Alabama. Number 7, LSU. They are still the best 2-loss team in the country. Listen, sometimes you just gotta go on the road and find a way to win, and that's what happened. It was pretty cold there in Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I don't even think it reached 40 degrees there. And I'm not making that as an excuse, but SEC teams, They're not used to that, rather. So give LSU credit. The final score is 13-10. I watched the entirety of the LSU Arkansas game, but you look at LSU, they control their own destiny, and I actually think, and I don't think they'll be in Georgia in the SEC championship game. I already stated that before, but I don't think that's happening. If they beat Georgia though and finish the season 11-2, there's going to be an argument there for LSU. There is. Their two losses are against a team that's ahead of them and the team that's number 25 in this poll right now. So, number 7, LSU, I moved them up 2 spots. Number 6, USC, I moved USC up 1 spot. They blew out Colorado on Friday, 55-17. Good win for them. They do get UCLA next week. That's going to be probably your game of the week. So we'll see what happens in that one. And to be honest, I'm kind of leaning towards UCLA in that one because I don't think USC just has the guys on the line to compete against these great teams. But if USC wins that game, the only loss is to Utah, which was on a 2-point try. I mean, if USC stops Utah on that 2-point try, they're undefeated. So USC number 6, I moved them up 1 spot to number 6. Not a top 5 time. My top 5 has not changed at all. Number 5, Tennessee. You look at Tennessee, 66-24 over Missouri. I was kind of box scoring watching this one. Missouri did hang around. Missouri must be the best 4-6 team ever. They just give Eli Drinkridge a 2-year extension. They did hang around this one for a while, but just too much Tennessee offense. You know, Tennessee was running up the score in this one. It was blatantly obvious. I kept them on number 5. They're going to need a little bit of help, in my opinion. But number 5, Tennessee. Number 4, TCU. I'm so happy that TCU won. I picked TCU to pull off the upset because everybody was picking Texas. And I was like, let's pump the brakes a little bit because the game went a lot differently than what I thought it would. But I was like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Who's known for blowing second half leads? Texas. Who's known for making comebacks in the second half? TCU. Okay, I mean, you knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen. But the game actually went a lot differently. TCU needed a game like this, I think, to show everybody that they could play defense, and boy, did they did. The final score was 17-10. The touchdown that Texas scored was on a fluke play on a fumble by the TCU quarterback Max Duggan. I watched the entirety of this one as well. I watched the entirety of several games yesterday, but you look at that was the only touchdown for Texas. Quinn Ewers was shut down by TCU's defense. Bijan Robinson was shut down by TCU's defense as well. So very impressive defensive performance for TCU. Offensively, it was a bit of a struggle bus game, but you found a way to win the game, score more points to Texas. So TCU, I kept them at 4, but that was a really impressive win for TCU. They still get they get Baylor next week. That could be a troublesome game for TCU in my opinion. But number 4, TCU. Number 3, Ohio State. They beat Indiana 56-14. I think the good news for Ohio State, because there was some bad news for Ohio State with the running back getting injured, they're getting carted off the field. But the good news for Ohio State was the weather was not ideal, and they took care of business against Indiana, 56-14. And I know Indiana is a bad team. I think overall Tom Allen doesn't know what he's doing, if you want my honest opinion. But Ohio State, I kept them at 3. We'll see what happens. They get Maryland next week. They should beat Maryland without a problem. Game is on the road, so we'll see what happens. But number 3, Ohio State. Number 2, Michigan. Listen, they did what they needed to do against Nebraska. 34-3, they covered the spread. Michigan, in my opinion, probably the more physical team between them and Ohio State. Michigan gets an interesting game at home against Illinois. I expect Michigan to take care of business in that one. More on Illinois in a second, but you look at Michigan, I think they're the second best team in the country. I really do. Number 2, Michigan. And then number 1, Georgia. 45-19 game over Mississippi State. Give Mississippi State credit. I thought they played this game tough for 3 quarters, but just too much Georgia at the end. Georgia ran away with it. But It was 31-19 going into the fourth quarter. And it was 17-12 at halftime. The one glaring weakness of Georgia, and I noticed this again in the Mississippi State game. I did not really watch this game. I just watched highlights. But this is the fourth. I believe this is the fourth time this happened this year with Georgia. They gave up a kickoff return or a punt return. I think it might. I think all four might have been punt returns. That's the one glaring weakness. In a tight game, that could really cost you. So it'll be interesting to see if they make adjustments with that. But you look at Georgia; they are the best team in the country by far, in my opinion, and it's not even close. Number one, Georgia. All right, teams that dropped out. Dropped out 5 teams this week. Number 18, Illinois. I expect Illinois to finish the season 8-4, get a crack at 9 wins. They're going to lose to Michigan next week. They lost to Purdue this week, 31-24. I think that Illinois is still a very successful season in my opinion. But a bit of a disappointment losing to Purdue this week. So number 18 Illinois, number 19 Liberty with disappointing loss to UConn. And I get it, UConn has actually been very quietly having a very good season for the standards that we have for them coming into this season. UConn's going bowling. They're 6-5. Jim Moore has really done a great job there at UConn. But we had a disappointing loss for Liberty there. To lose to UConn 36-33. So I dropped them out. Number 20, Tulane. If this was a top 26, Tulane would be number 26. Not so much of a disappointing loss for Tulane. I just think UCF's just better than Tulane. That's what it comes down to. So Tulane, I dropped them out at 20. But I do think it's not that I do think. If this was a top 26, Tulane would be number 26. And then number 21, Baylor. This was, to me, the biggest surprise. I thought Baylor would win this game against Kansas State. They didn't. I dropped them out at number 21. They get TCU next week. Could upset them. We'll see what happens. Number 22, Texas. I told you so. I said Texas was going to lose this game, and they did. So I dropped them out at number 22. All right, teams that I considered. If this was a top 27, Cincinnati would be number 27. 8-2, 2 losses are to UCF and Arkansas. At the end of the day, I do think Cincinnati is probably at worst a top 30 team. If this was a top 27, Cincinnati would be number 27. If this was a top 28, South Alabama. South Alabama, if you look at them, their 2 losses, 1-point loss to the team that's number 13 in this poll, and then a 10-6 loss to the team that's number 23 in this poll. South Alabama is 8-2. They are getting the job done there at South Alabama. So please keep an eye on South Alabama. They are a team that could definitely be in the top 25 when it's all said and done. If this was a top 29, Duke would be number 29. You look at Duke, 7-3. We'll see how they do down the stretch. But Duke has quietly went 7-3 this season. I know I gave them a shout out last week. If this was a top 30, it would be probably Illinois at 30. But anyways, a few other teams I want to shout out. UTSA. I told you UTSA will win the Conference USA. That's exactly what's going on here. They just have 2 bad losses. Well, not so much 2 bad losses. One against Houston in 4 overtimes, and then the loss to Texas. So UTSA, a team that I was high on coming into the season. It looks like they're going to go 11 to win the Conference USA, maybe a chance to win game number 12. And then let's give a shout out to Minnesota, Purdue, and Iowa, and Illinois. That's your race for the Big Ten West. If Iowa wins out, they control their own destiny. If they win out, they're in the Big Ten championship game. Minnesota, they're 7-3. They need to beat Iowa next week, I think, to really have a shot at the Big Ten championship game. Purdue, I don't know their path exactly, but I did want to give those teams a shout out. So congrats to those teams for still having a shot at the Big Ten championship game. But anyways, that's the video. Comment down below. Tell me what you think of the my top 25. I always like hearing from you all. Thanks for watching the video. Hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you do that. McD the Beast signing off.